Today, we're talking about lower back pain flare-up and why they happen when you think you're doing everything right. So it goes like that. You've been consistent with your exercise, you've been careful with your movement, and then out of nowhere, bang, your lower back just goes down and you feel like you're back to square one and you took a huge step back. Now, the common belief is that flare-up are random, unpredictable, and it's just something you have to accept when you have a chronic lower back pain. It's just part of the process, they say. But here's the truth. Flare-up are never random. They happen for specific reasons, very predictable reasons. And once you understand these reasons, you can almost prevent 90% of them from ever happening again. Now, I've analyzed more than 1,000 flare-up cases from my past client over the years, and they all fall into the three categories. There's always a reason, and there's always a pattern. So in this video, I'll break down the real reason why flare-up happen, and more importantly, how you can prevent them from ever happening again in your life. By the way, as always, just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I only have my master's degree in biomechanics and kinesiology. I'm just sharing my experience as somebody who's been through this myself for 15 years. And those are the lessons I've learned after I helped over more than 400 plus clients all over the world to escape their chronic lower back pain and get back to the active lifestyle. Now, before everything else, here's a mindset shift that changes everything. Now, a flare-up isn't you going back to square one, all right? It's not a huge step backward either. It's actually one more step forward in your journey. Now, I know this sounds crazy when you're still in pain, but hear me out. Every flare-up teaches you something about your body that you didn't know before. Maybe it shows your weak link in your system. It shows where your movement pattern still needs to work. It's just a part of the process. So think about learning to ride a bike, right? You don't just fall off and then you say, I'm back to square one. Now you fall off, you learn what caused the fall, and then you adjust, and then you get back on. Now the same thing applies to your back pain journey. Every flare-up is just data. Every episode is just feedback. I have one client who was devastated by his first flare-up after months of feeling absolutely great, and he thought he was broken again. But when we analyzed what happened, his pain just went away in 2 weeks, and they never had any flare-up ever since. So mindset is super important. And now, before we dive right into the three main causes for your lower back flare-up, let me ask you something. When was the last time you checked with your assessment? Now, I'm not talking about how your body feel. I'm talking about objective Hable test assessment. What I mean by that is your straight leg raise, your hip internal rotation, your trunk rotation, upper body rotation, etc. Now, here is what I observed for all of my clients. 90% of those people who had a recent flare-up haven't checked their assessment for at least 4 days in a row. They're going by feel instead of data. They're assuming that just because their body feel good yesterday, their movement pattern are still optimal today. But your body is constantly adapting. Stress changes, your pattern changes, your sleep affects your mobility, your walk posture shift your alignment. What was balanced last week might be completely off this week. So before we talk about three reasons why flare-up happens, ask yourself, when was the last time you checked your assessment? Now, by the way, if you don't have anything to check on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, whatever you're doing right now isn't working. Now, in my experience with hundreds of successful clients, every flare-up fall into one of the three categories. Cause one, just consistent problem. And I'm not talking about missing a day here and there. I'm talking about the subtle inconsistency that add up over time. Maybe you've been doing your exercise for quite some time, but now with the same focus, maybe you've been rushing them through. Maybe you've been skipping the breathing component. One day leads to another, and then bam, flare-up happened. Now, here is what I've learned. Your body doesn't really care your intention. You only respond to your consistent input. If your input changes, your output changes. As simple as that. I've seen clients who thought they're being consistent, but when we track their actual routine, they are doing their exercise 30% less effectively than they thought. Now, cause number two is you did something you shouldn't. The second cause is pretty simple one. Doing something your body wasn't ready for. And usually, you know what it is. Maybe you help somebody to move furniture. Maybe you tried a new workout. Maybe you sit in the weird position for a long time. Maybe you were under unusual stress because of the work, because of family. Now, here's the thing. Your body has a current capacity. And when you exceed that capacity without proper preparation, something gets. And here is what interesting is really the activity itself that causes a flare-up. It's doing the activity when your movement pattern were good enough to begin with. And this is why assessment is so important. If you know your current capacity with your assessment, now you can make informed decision about what activity are safe for you. Now, cause number three is your execution is off. The third cause is the most subtle. Now, you're doing everything right, but your execution has drifted. Maybe your form on the exercise has gotten a little bit sloppy. Maybe you're compensating in a way you don't realize. Maybe your breathing has changed. Now, I see this all the time with my clients who've been doing well for months. They got comfortable. They stopped paying attention to details, and slowly their execution shifted away from what was working. Those exercises are the same. The frequency is the same, but the quality has changed. And the quality matters more than quantity when it comes to your movement pattern. Now, when flare-up do happen, here's what you need to do immediately. Now, first of all, take accountability on what did you do wrong. Did I miss any workout? Is the consistency off? Is the execution off? Did I do something stupid? Now, right after that, bad. Don't beat yourself up. Don't feel guilty about it. You can't change what already happened, but what you can change is what you are doing right now. Now, check with your assessment, not your pain level, but your assessment, okay? Your actual movement assessment. If your assessment are still good, if your straight leg raise is still at the baseline, if your hip rotation are still normal, if your trunk rotation is still balanced, still don't worry too much about it, or the pain will go away by itself in just about 2-3 weeks. Sometimes life happens, sometimes you get a flare up even though your movement pattern are good enough. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're back to square one. Now, here's the thing. Once your assessment got better, you are moving better. When you're moving better, you're going to feel better along the way automatically. Just as simple. And let me be super blunt about this, why other approach didn't really work for flare up. Now, if you try to rest and ice your body, now that might reduce inflammation, but they don't address why flare up happened in the first place. You're treating the symptoms, not the cause. Now, if you go try a chiropractor, they might provide temporary relief. All right. But if your movement pattern haven't changed, you just recreate the same problem over and over again. And of course, you can try more stretching, but if your assessment already show that you have adequate range of motion, more stretching, more exercise, more new exercise, just a wasted effort. Without knowing your specific limitation based on your assessment, you are just doing the exercise for the sake of doing the exercise. You have no plan moving forward. So of course you will fail because you're doing the exercise based on how you feel, not based on how your body moves, but the feeling wise, assessment don't. Now here's the bottom line. Flare up happens for a predictable reason. And the fastest way to get out of flare up is through better movement pattern, not more treatment. But you can't improve what you don't measure. If you don't know how to assess your movement pattern, you have no idea what you're doing. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're serious about fixing lower back pain and you want to work with us, book a one-on-one call, link down below, and let's talk. And if you want to see the 4-step process to fix your lower back once and for all, you can click that video and watch more. All right, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.